You'll get a lot of hate if you start talking about this with other couples. I often get mad at things that are small and then realize later, we just had a fight about something so inconsequential, I'm a little bit embarrassed. This is your partner. You're not sitting down having a business meeting. You're not a roommate. It's really sad when humans won't engage on the next level. It's all just communicating your expectations and desires and hearing somebody else's.
I remember you had a tweet recently. If you guys are like pissed at each other, it's like how big or whatever. Like, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the too small trigger.
Yeah.
Basically goes like this. I often get mad at things that are small and then realize later, oh, we just had a fight about something so inconsequential. I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. And I remember one time I was talking to our therapist about it and she was like, yeah, of course you do. Everybody does. She's like, literally everybody I've ever communicated with has this exact same problem. The small things become the big things because we don't know how to enable them, and they become these small triggers because of all the stuff you have in your past that you haven't dealt with. So basically, when my husband and I get in a fight, if there's a moment where one of us is able to just be the viewer and not be elevated or starting to get upset, which usually happens, there's usually one person who's upset and one person who's like, this seems kind of dumb. And in that moment, if we can, without judgment, go, can you just rate this for me on a 1 to 5? How much does this matter to you? Like, what's happening right now? It makes the other person kind of snap out of it for a second. And you're like, well, it's not a 5 because 5 is you're dead. And it's not a 3 even because that's like we need to have a huge talk, go to our therapist. Is it a 2? Like we do need to sit down right now and talk? No, it's probably a 1. And so because we have definitions for each one of those, it often snaps us out of it. Not every time, but often.
And do you find the majority of the time it's usually like a 1 or a 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost, now it takes some practice to get used to acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is you'll get, or at least what happened for me is I would get scared that if I was saying things were 1s and 2s too often, I would become his doormat. So then nothing I say matters and none of my problems are big enough. And now you're not even going to pay attention to them. If I say it's a 1 or 2, you won't listen to me.
Right.
And once your partner doesn't have that action and instead they go, okay, it's a 1 or a 2. So can we talk about it tonight when we have like our check-in? And you're like, yeah, that's true. And then they hold their promise and they talk about it that night. The next time you're like, hey, I'm feeling something. It's not that big a deal. It's a 1 or 2. Can we talk about it tonight? Yes. Great. Adults. Yeah. But I just wish I was taught stuff like that earlier because my immediate normal reaction is more like, let it sit for a long time and then have like my tea kettle moment.
Yeah. And blow it.
Right. Yeah. Later for something that makes no sense.
Got it. And what is your daily check-in? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, that one we call team. That one I stole from our therapist, actually. And basically that one's pretty easy. So like, say we were in a relationship and you're sitting with your partner. Usually what happens, you have little micro fights during the day or little micro incidents, like every human does. And typically what you do is you call those out in the moment, and those can feel like nagging, or they can feel like, they can feel like they're stacking up throughout the day. And because of that stacking, eventually you sort of erupt. And so we found that was happening to us. And instead she said, can you just do this daily check-in for me? And I would say we do it 60% of the time, not every single day. But when we haven't done it for, let's say, a couple weeks, that's almost always when we fight. We never fight when we do the daily check-in. And so basically at the end of the day, 5 or 10 minutes, we sit down. It's called team. The first one starts with touch. So I always joke when we're upset, we like touch our fingers together like this, like E.T. But, maybe holding hands, sitting next to each other, whatever. And then education, I'd be like, I learned this thing today. It was so sweet. Eric taught it to me. Let me tell you. And you get that novelty with your partner. And then appreciation, like, man, you brought me food. That was so cool. Thanks. I appreciate that. You just can't repeat the same one every day. And then the last one is metric. Like, remember when I told you today about that, like 1 or 2, you were late, I don't like when you're late. Can we work on that? And because it's not in the moment, somehow the emotion gets removed from it. And so that's worked really well for us.
Cool. So the last part's the M's like almost like a clearing exercise. And then what was the T stand for again?
Touch.
Touch. Okay. Why is the touch part important?
It's important because it reminds you you're not a roommate. Like this is your partner. You're not sitting down having a business meeting. You're like holding hands. You're reconnecting. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to be pissed at somebody when you're like holding their hand or sitting next to them.
You don't want to slap them.
Exactly. Okay. And if the worst thing that you're going to do when you're kind of mad is you're like ET touching, it's a little funny. So it breaks the ice.
Got it.
And a lot of people, you'll get a lot of hate if you start talking about this with other couples because often couples won't commit to doing these actions.
Yeah.
It feels like work.
Yep.
Right?
This is not a business.
Right.
We're humans.
Right, exactly.
But it's like, business is humans.
Business is humans. Yeah, it's all just communicating your expectations and desires and hearing somebody else's.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really sad when humans won't engage on the next level. Not that it's always easy, but worth it.